Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy real-life stories about breakups, boundaries, and the moment someone finally stops accepting disrespect, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from, because what happened to me started with one text message and ended with the quietest kind of ending I've ever lived through. My name is Daniel Cross, I'm 32, and until 3 nights ago I had been with my girlfriend, Marissa Hale, for a little under 3 years. For the last 11 months we had been living together in a one-bedroom apartment in the West Elm district of Brighton Falls. A place that was legally mine on paper even if, in practice, most of it had slowly become hers. The lease was in my name, the utilities were in my name, the internet, the insurance, the monthly rent, all mine. Marissa helped now and then, usually when she was between expenses, which somehow never happened on the actual due dates. I had noticed that pattern for a long time, along with plenty of others, but like an idiot I kept telling myself that relationships go through seasons, that good partners are patient, that not every problem is a reason to walk away. Then that message came in and stripped all the excuses down to the bone. That evening she never came home from work at her usual time. No warning, no quick text saying she'd be late. Nothing. At first I didn't think much of it. By 6:30 I sent a simple message asking if everything was okay. No response. Around 7:15 I called, and it went straight to voicemail. I tried again later, same thing. By then I wasn't angry, just confused. We weren't one of those couples who tracked each other every second, but disappearing without a word wasn't normal for her either. At 9:04 p.m., my phone finally lit up. I expected an excuse, or maybe a rushed explanation. Instead the screen showed a message so cold it almost looked fake. "I'm not yours. Don't call me again." That was it. No context. No fight leading up to it. No discussion earlier that day. Just those words, dropped into my lap like a verdict. I stared at them for a long time, longer than I want to admit. The strange thing is that the message hurt less than the tone. I knew that tone. It was the same clipped, dismissive voice she used whenever she wanted to end a conversation by force and cast me as the problem for still caring. In the past, I would have panicked. I would have called again, apologized for pushing, asked what I did wrong, tried to decode the mood behind the words. But something in me had gone tired in a way that felt deeper than anger. I typed back, "Understood. I'm not your boyfriend anymore either. Don't come back to the apartment tonight." Then I put my shoes on, went downstairs, and called an emergency locksmith. I had never done anything like that in my life. Even while I waited, part of me expected myself to crack, to send another text, to soften what I'd said. I didn't. The locksmith arrived just before 10. I showed him my ID, my lease, signed what I needed to sign, and had the lock changed. When the door clicked shut with the new cylinder in place, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not revenge, not triumph, just stillness. I put my phone face down on the kitchen counter and let the apartment sit in silence. For nearly 3 hours, there was nothing. Then the calls started. 1 missed call, then another, then 3 in a row, then voicemails, then texts. By midnight, my phone looked like the dashboard of someone else's disaster. I still didn't answer. I knew the rhythm already. First outrage, then disbelief, then fear, then tears. Marissa was many things, but she was never unpredictable once consequences entered the room. The first voicemail came in at 12:11 a.m. I didn't play it right away. I could imagine the progression without hearing a word. At 12:27, there were already 10 missed calls and 4 messages waiting. The texts had changed too. At first they were sharp. "Daniel, this isn't funny. Open the door. Stop acting insane." I read them without reacting. For the first time, I was taking her literally. She had told me not to call, told me she wasn't mine, told me in the bluntest possible way that connection was over. Fine. I accepted the terms. At 1:02 in the morning, I heard her outside the apartment. The first knocks were controlled, the kind of knock someone uses when they still think they can manage the scene if they keep their dignity. "Daniel," she called through the door, trying to sound irritated instead of scared. "Open up. I'm not doing this in the hallway." I didn't move. A second later, she tried the handle once, then again, then harder. Silence followed. Then I heard the distinct sound of her kicking off her heels. Are you serious? She snapped. We had one fight. Adults do not do this. That line almost made me laugh because we hadn't had a fight. She had sent a declaration and expected me to remain available under it. That was different. When I still didn't answer, the insults started. I was insecure. I was controlling. This apparently was exactly why she had needed space. I leaned against the kitchen counter listening to her through the wood, and every word confirmed something I had been refusing to name for months. She didn't want distance. She wanted unilateral power. By 1:19 her tone changed. Softer now. Slower. Daniel, she said. My charger is inside. My stuff is inside. Come on. I said nothing. She called again from outside, and my phone buzzed itself tired across the countertop. Around 1:36 I heard her slide down the door and sit on the floor in the corridor. Her voice dropped into that familiar wounded register she used whenever she needed to reposition herself as the one who'd been hurt. I didn't mean it like that, she said. You know I say things when I'm upset. I had heard versions of that sentence after every line she crossed. The words changed, but the structure stayed the same. What she meant was always supposed to outrank what she actually did. For the first time, I didn't rescue her from her own message. I slept on the couch that night, not because I was heartbroken, but because the bedroom felt like territory still soaked in her rules. When I woke up, there were 34 missed calls on my phone. I made coffee, sat at the counter, and finally listened to the voicemails. The first 2 were pure rage. The next few were stunned disbelief. By the 6th, I could hear calculation creeping in. Please, she said in one voice low and careful. I don't even know where I'm supposed to go. That one almost landed. Almost. Not because I believed she loved me, but because practical distress is harder to ignore than theatrics. At 8:41 that morning there was another knock, much lighter this time. Controlled. Polite. The version of Marissa that appears when she realizes brute force has failed. I opened the door with the security chain still latched. She looked awful. Mascara streaked, hair thrown into a messy tie, yesterday's clothes, one of my oversized hoodies under her coat. But the second she saw me, the softness in her face tightened back into anger. So you're really doing this? She asked. You think you can erase me overnight? I didn't erase you, I said. You set the boundary. She actually scoffed. That text was about space. You're twisting it. No, I told her. It was about disrespect. Her eyes flicked past me into the apartment, as if the inside still belonged to her by default. I live here. You lived here, I said. With me. She folded her arms and changed tactics again. Suddenly this was abuse. Suddenly locking the door after being told not to call was somehow a form of cruelty. She loved using heavyweight words whenever accountability made her uncomfortable. I didn't threaten you, I said calmly. I didn't touch you. I didn't harass you. You told me to stop calling. So I stopped. That's not what I meant, she fired back. I know, I said. What you meant was that you wanted the freedom to disappear while keeping everything else exactly the same. Her face flushed red. You don't get to decide that. But I already had, and I think that was the first moment she truly saw it. The tears came fast after that, almost on cue. I just needed breathing room, she whispered. I never thought you'd do something this extreme. I nodded. That's the problem. You never think I'll actually leave. She stared at me, searching for the version of me that always folded, the one who would get scared by her tears and reopen the negotiation. She couldn't find him. That seemed to shake her more than the lock did. She didn't leave right away. She stood there in the corridor like the doorway itself was still a debate. One hand on her hip, phone in the other, glancing from my face to the chain as if she might discover some angle she had missed. So what now? She asked. You throw me out like garbage? I'm not throwing you out, I said. I'm enforcing what you made very clear. She let out this bitter laugh. I needed one night without you blowing up my phone and suddenly I'm homeless. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't say you needed one night. You said, I'm not yours. Don't call me again. She rolled her eyes so hard it was almost theatrical. Oh my God. You are so literal. That's because with you, I said, the real meaning always changes after the fallout arrives. Then she lowered her voice, tried sounding reasonable again, and told me to let her inside so we could talk privately because I was embarrassing both of us in the hallway. There it was again, image management. If she could move the conversation back behind the door, she could regain control of the frame. I told her no. I said we could arrange a time later for her to collect essentials, preferably with another person present. The mask fell immediately. So this is punishment, she said, because I didn't play perfect girlfriend?
No, iyan suarat.
This is me listening. She looked genuinely stunned by that. You can't end a relationship by text. You ended it by text, I said. I just agreed. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at it, then back at me. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, I said, and I meant it. But that stopped being my responsibility when you decided I wasn't even allowed to worry about you. That hit harder than I expected. Her mouth opened, then shut. For a second I saw real fear, not grief over losing me, but fear over logistics. No plan, no access, no guarantee. You're serious, she said. I nodded. Yes. She stepped back slowly, like she no longer trusted the floor. You're going to regret this, she said quietly. Maybe, I told her, but I already knew something she didn't. The regret I felt for staying had finally become heavier than the fear of leaving. Once that balance shifts, it never really goes back. She left the building a few minutes later, but she didn't go far. I watched through the peephole as she paced the parking area with her phone pressed to her ear, gesturing toward the building like she was already rehearsing the story for an audience. I didn't need to hear the words to know my role. I was the unstable one, the cold one, the controlling man who had locked out a helpless woman for no reason. By noon, the texts resumed. My mom says what you're doing is illegal. Ava says you can't just kick me out. You're proving exactly why I needed space. I ignored all of it. An hour later, the tone changed again. Daniel, please.
I'm exhausted.
I haven't slept. I just need clothes and my laptop. That message was careful, stripped of accusation, almost sensible. I replied with one sentence. We can arrange a time later with a third party present. The typing bubble appeared immediately, vanished, reappeared, then came the predictable response. So now you don't trust me? I looked at the screen and felt almost detached. It wasn't about trust. Trust assumes mutual good faith. What we had was a pattern, and patterns tell the truth faster than promises do. I typed back, I trust patterns more than apologies. That was the last message I sent her that day. By mid-afternoon she returned, this time with her friend Ava Mercer standing a few steps behind her with crossed arms, clearly brought in as social pressure. Marissa knocked softly, almost politely, like she was auditioning for the role of the calm, reasonable one. Daniel, she called, can we please act like adults? I stayed quiet until Ava chimed in and said I was making things worse than they needed to be. Then I raised my voice just enough to be heard and said, I'm not escalating anything. I'm ending it. Marissa's voice cracked as soon as she realized the witness strategy wasn't working. After everything I've put up with from you, that sentence finished something in me. In that instant, I understood she wasn't upset because she was losing me. She was upset because she was losing access to the apartment, to the stability, to the version of me that always backed down before she had to. That night, the apartment was quieter than I had ever heard it. No footsteps. No drawers opening and closing. No dramatic sighs. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the periodic glow of my phone trying to make me feel guilty. At 9:38 p.m., she left a voicemail that finally made me sit down. Her voice trembled. I don't understand how you can do this so coldly. I loved you. I still love you. You can't just cut me out like I meant nothing. It was the clearest thing she had said all day, not because I believed the love part, but because she had accidentally named the thing she truly couldn't tolerate. Losing entry. With Marissa, love had always come bundled with access, availability, responsiveness, me remaining reachable no matter how dismissively she treated me. I sat there thinking about every time she had called me too intense for checking if she got home safe, too needy for asking a simple question, too insecure for wanting normal communication. Now suddenly I was heartless because I had stopped. Close to 11 there was another pounding on the door, this one stripped of etiquette. "Please," she cried. "I'll say whatever you want. Just let me in." That sentence told the whole story. Not "let's fix this." Not "let's understand each other." Just "let me in." Not resolution. Access. "I'm not opening the door," I said. There was a long pause, then an explosion of anger. She shouted that I was punishing her, asked if I thought I was some kind of hero. I stayed silent. A moment later I heard her slump against the door, crying harder now, and for one brief second my chest tightened. This was the exact moment where I would usually cave, where I would convince myself her pain mattered more than mine because hers was louder. But something had changed. I realized that opening the door would not be compassion. It would be consent to the cycle. So I said the only thing I had left to say, "I hope you're safe tonight, but we are done." The crying stopped almost instantly. Then came a silence so complete it felt physical. That was when I knew she had finally understood. Not that I was angry, not that I was hurt, that I was no longer available. The next morning I got an email with the subject line, "Can we please talk like adults?" That nearly made me laugh, because Marissa hated email.
Tout permanent.
Too easy to quote later. But that was exactly why she used it now. The calls hadn't worked. The tears hadn't worked. The hallway performances hadn't worked. Email was her attempt to rewrite the situation as something thoughtful and measured. The message was long and carefully crafted. She said she had felt emotionally abandoned, said she had been overwhelmed, said my response had re-traumatized her. She used the word trauma twice. Then, tucked neatly into the middle, she mentioned that she might have to involve other people if I continued refusing to cooperate. That line finally made me angry, not loud angry, but focused angry. I replied with 3 short sentences. "You told me not to call you. I complied. You said you were not mine. I accepted that. We can arrange pickup of your belongings through a third party." Nothing more. 10 minutes later my phone rang from an unknown number. Then another. Then another. Then I got a text from her sister, whom I had not heard from in nearly a year, asking what the hell was wrong with me. I blocked the number. Early that afternoon Marissa showed up alone again. No friend. No backup. No performance. Just her standing outside the door with red eyes and shaking hands. "I only need my laptop," she said. "Please. I have work." That was the first request that sounded human instead of strategic. I hesitated, not because I doubted myself, but because it was the first thing she'd asked for that wasn't about us. I told her to step away from the door. I put the chain back on, grabbed the laptop from the desk, and opened the door just enough to slide it out. Our fingers never touched. She looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. "You're really not coming back from this, are you?" she asked. I shook my head. "Neither are you." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Her shoulders dropped. That was the true end of the fight, not with shouting, but with recognition. That afternoon I packed the rest of her things. Not dramatically, methodically. Folded clothes, paired shoes, sealed toiletries, chargers, cosmetics, books, everything. As I moved through drawers and shelves, I realized how much space she had occupied, not just physically but mentally. Entire cabinets I never used because she had declared them hers. Corners of the apartment I avoided touching because she had an aesthetic. At 8:03 that night, my phone buzzed from a new number. "Daniel, it's Marissa. Please don't hang up." I didn't answer. Another message followed right after. "I'm not angry anymore. I just need to understand how this happened." That one irritated me more than the rest, because it pretended the collapse had come from nowhere. As if this had not been built line by line, dismissal by dismissal, until one message finally tipped it over. Later she sent paragraphs. Apologies braided together with blame, self-pity woven into accusation. She said she had been overwhelmed, said I had taken everything too literally, said she never thought I would actually leave. That last sentence hit hardest. She never thought I would leave. I sat with that for a long time, realizing how safe she had felt treating me like an option. How certain she had been that no matter how contemptuous or cruel she became, I would still be there calling, worrying, apologizing, keeping the lights on. I typed a response, deleted it. Typed another, deleted that too. Then I sent one line, I meant what I said. Please stop contacting me. For the first time since all of this began, there were no more calls that night. No pounding. No speeches. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I felt something I had not expected yet somehow recognized immediately. Relief. 2 days later, the building manager called. He sounded awkward, the way people sound when they know they've walked into someone else's mess. He said Marissa had contacted him claiming she had been locked out suddenly and needed urgent access to essential personal items. He asked whether there had been some misunderstanding. I kept my voice calm and gave him the plain truth. The apartment was leased solely to me. The relationship had ended. I was coordinating the return of her belongings through a neutral third party. I also showed him the message she had sent telling me not to call her again. He read it, nodded slowly, and said he would make a note of it. That afternoon she tried one final angle. A handwritten note slid under the door. In it she said she never thought I would actually abandon her, that she had been hurt and confused, that all she had wanted was peace, not consequences. It ended with a line that made me sit down and stare at the wall for a long time. I still think we can fix this if you stop being stubborn. That was the moment I understood the whole thing with painful clarity. She did not want repair. She wanted reversal. She wanted the previous version of me back, the one who would hear "stop calling me" and immediately panic, the one who would apologize for caring, the one who would reopen the door no matter how she had spoken to him. I folded the note and put it in a drawer. That evening I packed the rest of her belongings, labeled the boxes cleanly, and arranged a storage drop-off through Ava so there would be no direct contact. The next day was the first day nobody tried to reach me. No new numbers, no emails, no messages through friends, no knocks at the door. Just an ordinary Tuesday, boring and uneventful. And I had forgotten how much I missed boring until it came back. On the drive home after dropping off the final boxes, I looked at her original message one last time. I'm not yours. Don't call me again. For days afterward, I kept asking myself whether I had gone too far, whether a normal boyfriend would have opened the door, talked it out, found a softer landing. But here is what I understand now. That message was never about independence or healthy boundaries. It was about power without responsibility. She wanted the freedom to disconnect while keeping the safety net untouched. She wanted to reject connection without losing access. She wanted comfort on demand and consequences delayed. The moment I accepted her words exactly as she gave them, the whole arrangement collapsed. The rage, the tears, the panic, all of it came not because she loved me so deeply, but because she never imagined I would step out of the role she had assigned me. I don't hate her. I don't even think she's a monster. I think she got comfortable in a dynamic where I chased clarity and she kept one foot near the exit just in case. I ended that dynamic without screaming, without revenge, without theatrics. I ended it with a lock, a boundary, and silence. So yes, I changed the lock. Yes, I stopped answering. And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel like I'm waiting for someone else to choose me. I already did. If you've ever been in a relationship where someone tells you to stop caring but still expects you to stay available, tell me what you think in the comments. And if this story hit home for you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories like this.